How my 18th birthday party ended with my mother's arrest for attempted murder. I've never had a good relationship with my mother, Abigail. That's not teenage hyperbole, it's a cold, hard fact that has defined the entire 18 years of my existence. I was not a child born of love, or even desire. I was, in her own words, frequently and loudly whispered to her friends on the phone, a mistake. A mistake that had derailed her promising career as a high-end realtor and trapped her in a marriage she never truly wanted. Growing up, her resentment was a constant, suffocating presence in our home. It was in the way she would look at me, a flicker of something cold and hard in her eyes. It was in the way she would praise my cousins, showering them with hugs and compliments, while my own achievements were met with a critical eye and a dismissive wave of her hand. Anna on a report card was met with, "Why wasn't it an A+?" Second place in the school science fair earned me a lecture on the importance of trying harder. She was a sculptor, and I was her unwilling and perpetually flawed piece of clay. She controlled everything, from my appearance to my interests. When I was 8, my heart was set on ballet classes, on the pink tutus and satin slippers my friends wore. She enrolled me in karate instead, declaring that ballet was too girly and weak. She kept my hair, which I longed to grow out, in a short, boyish cut that I despised. My wardrobe was a sea of baggy jeans and plain t-shirts, a deliberate and cruel denial of the dresses and skirts I so desperately wanted. When I would cry, she would snap at me to stop being so feminine and dramatic. My only sanctuary in this cold, sterile emotional landscape was my father, Robert. He was a college literature professor, a quiet, kind man who saw the daughter his wife refused to. He was my protector, my ally, my best friend. He would bring me stacks of books from the university library. Our shared love of stories a secret, sacred bond between us. Every weekend was our time. We'd go fishing at the local lake, the quiet companionship a welcome antidote to the constant tension at home. He taught me how to throw a perfect curveball and would cheer the loudest at my karate tournaments, even though he knew how much I hated them. He was the one who stood up to her, in his own quiet, gentle way. When she threw away a pink backpack he had bought me, he simply went out and bought me another one. When she refused to let me join the school drama club, he patiently, and over the course of several days, convinced her that it would look good on college applications. He wasn't perfect. There were times I wished he would be louder, stronger, that he would meet her cold fury with a fire of his own. But he tried. He did his best to shield me from the worst of her harsh, unloving nature. And for that, I will be eternally grateful. Everything, absolutely everything, in my carefully constructed world of survival changed the day he died. He was in the middle of a lecture on Shakespeare, his favorite subject, when he had a massive, catastrophic stroke. He was gone before the ambulance even arrived. I was devastated, a grief so profound and all-consuming it felt like a physical weight, crushing the air from my lungs. But my mother's reaction to his death was a new and terrifying kind of horror. She didn't shed a single tear at his funeral. While I sobbed, my body racked with a grief that felt bottomless, she stood by the casket, her expression a mask of bored indifference, occasionally checking her phone. The day after we buried him, she began to systematically erase him from our home, donating his clothes, his books, his entire life's collection of cherished objects, without once asking if I wanted to keep anything, a single memento of the only person who had ever truly loved me. 2 months later, a time period in which a normal person would still be drowning in the depths of grief, my mother announced she was getting married. To Henry, my dad's best friend since college. A successful architect who had been a frequent and welcome visitor in our home for as long as I could remember. He was a widower, his own wife having passed away years ago, leaving him to raise their young daughter, Sonia, on his own. I had always liked Henry. He was kind and funny, and he had always treated me with a warmth and affection that was so absent from my own mother. From the moment Henry and Sonia moved into our house, the house my father had left to me in his will, my mother underwent a complete and startling transformation. She became, overnight, the perfect, doting and loving mother. But not to me. All of that affection, all of that warmth, all of that maternal care she had withheld from me for 18 years was now lavished upon Sonia. She helped Sonia with her homework, a task she had always dismissed as my own responsibility. She took her on lavish, indulgent shopping sprees for the pretty, feminine clothes she had always denied me. She praised her achievements, no matter how small, with an effusive, almost manic enthusiasm. Her social media, which had once been a curated gallery of her own accomplishments, was now a shrine to her perfect new stepdaughter. She would post endless photos of them together, baking cookies, going to the park, their heads bent together in a pantomime of mother-daughter intimacy. The captions were a series of tiny, daily stabs to my heart. Finally got the daughter I always wanted. So blessed to have this beautiful angel in my life. The contrast between how she treated me and how she treated Sonia was a form of daily, psychological torture. If Sonia mentioned liking a particular dress in a magazine, my mother would have it delivered the next day. But when I, a growing teenager, needed new shoes because my old ones had holes in them, she told me to wait until next month. At dinner, a meal I was now expected to help prepare, Sonia always got to choose the menu. If Sonia wanted seconds, my mother would leap up to serve her. If I reached for more food, she would make a sharp, critical comment about my weight, even though I was a competitive swimmer and in perfect physical condition. She began to systematically exclude me from their new, perfect family unit. Every weekend, she would plan elaborate outings for the family, trips to the amusement park, shopping excursions to the city, movie nights. But I was never invited. When I asked why, she would offer a cold, dismissive excuse. "You're too old for these kinds of family outings, dear. You should be focusing on your studies." She even, in a move of breathtaking cruelty, converted my small study, the one place in the house that had been entirely my own, into an art studio for Sonia, forcing me to do my homework on my bed or at the crowded, noisy dining table. Her next move was to begin a subtle but persistent campaign to poison Henry against me. She twisted my every action, my every word, into a narrative of a troubled, antisocial, and rebellious teenager. If I spent time in my room studying, a behavior she had once demanded of me, she would tell Henry the First was refusing to bond with my new family. If I went out with my friends from the swim team, friends she had met and approved of, she would claim I was being secretive and staying out all night, even though I was always home by my strict curfew. When I got a part-time job at the local library to save money for college, a move any other parent would be proud of, she told Henry the First was deliberately trying to avoid family time. But Henry, a man of quiet intelligence and keen observation, wasn't easily fooled. He had known me for years. He had seen the dynamic between my mother and me long before he had become a part of it. He would often, and with a gentle but firm tone, defend me, questioning her accusations, pointing out the inconsistencies in her stories. This, of course, only made her more determined to get rid of me. Her first major gambit was an attempt to sell our house. She announced to Henry one evening, her voice a symphony of false enthusiasm, that she thought they should move, to make fresh memories as a new family. What she had conveniently failed to mention to him was that the house, our family home, had belonged solely to my father and that he had left it to me in his will, with the stipulation that I could not inherit it until I was 21. Henry, who had no desire to uproot both me and his own daughter from our schools and our friends, refused. My mother was furious, a cold, hard anger that she tried to hide behind a tight, brittle smile. Her behavior toward me became even more erratic, a bizarre and dizzying dance of Jekyll and Hyde. When Henry was around, she was a vision of maternal sweetness, all warm smiles and concerned inquiries about my day. But the moment he was out of earshot, her face would harden, her voice would drop to a venomous whisper, and the small cruelties would resume. She accidentally threw away the last remaining photos I had of my dad, claiming they had been damaged during cleaning. She donated my entire collection of childhood toys to charity, without asking me. She even began locking the kitchen at night, telling Henry that I was stealing food, when in reality, I would sometimes study late and get hungry. I tried, on several occasions, to talk to Henry about what was happening, but she was a master of interception, always managing to interrupt our conversations or create a diversion. She started monitoring my phone, reading my texts, listening in on my calls. The only reason I could still afford to buy lunch at school was because Henry, after noticing that my mother had stopped packing one for me, had quietly given me his own credit card, telling me to use it for emergencies. My 18th birthday was next week, and Henry, in a gesture of pure, unadulterated kindness, was determined to throw a party for me. He was planning to invite all my friends from school and the swim team, my cousins, our extended family. It was the first time in my life that anyone had ever made such a fuss over my birthday. My mother, of course, tried to shut it down immediately. "Oh, Henry, I don't know," she'd said, her voice dripping with a false, saccharine concern. "I just worry it will make Sonia feel bad, since she didn't have a big celebration for her 16th. But Henry, for once, was unyielding. He insisted that turning 18 was a special milestone, a rite of passage that deserved to be celebrated. I should have been excited, thrilled at the prospect of a real, actual birthday party. But I was terrified. The look in my mother's eyes when Henry had overruled her objection, a look of such cold, reptilian fury, had sent a chill down my spine.
She was planning something.
I could feel it in my bones. I just didn't know what it was. The party, at first, was perfect. Henry had transformed our backyard into a fairy tale wonderland of fairy lights, colorful balloons, and a huge, hand-painted banner that read, "Happy 18th birthday, Sarah." He had hired professional caterers, ordered my favorite chocolate and strawberry cake, and even hired a DJ. My mother, for her part, was a vision of maternal pride, a role she played with a chilling, Oscar-worthy conviction. She helped with the decorations, greeted my friends with a warm, welcoming smile, and kept telling everyone how happy she was to be celebrating her baby girl turning 18. Looking back, I should have known something was wrong. She had never, not once in my entire life, called me her baby girl. The evening was a blur of happy, normal moments. My friends and I danced. My cousins and I shared old, silly memories. Even Sonia, my new stepsister, was being genuinely nice, helping me open the small mountain of presents that had accumulated on the gift table. Around dinner time, the caterers began to serve the food. They had set up a beautiful buffet of pasta, grilled meats, and an array of fresh, colorful salads. As everyone was lining up to fill their plates, my mother approached me, a plate of creamy pasta in her hand. "I had them make this just for you, honey," she said, her smile so warm, so genuine, that for a foolish, hopeful moment, I allowed myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she was finally trying to change. I took a bite of the pasta. It tasted slightly off, a strange, metallic tang I couldn't quite place. I took a second bite, and then it happened. My throat began to close up, a terrifying, constricting sensation. My lips began to tingle, then swell. I tried to speak, to call for help, but the words wouldn't come. The last thing I remember before the world went black was the look on my mother's face. A strange, unreadable expression of cold, clinical observation. I have a severe, life-threatening allergy to shellfish, a fact my mother knows better than anyone. When I was 5 years old, an accidental exposure to shrimp had sent me into anaphylactic shock and nearly killed me. Since then, I have been meticulously, almost obsessively careful about what I eat, and I carry an EpiPen with me at all times. My mother was the one who had always been in charge of informing schools, restaurants, and other parents about my allergy. She knew, with an intimate, detailed knowledge, exactly what could kill me. When I collapsed, Henry, with his quick, clear-headed thinking, saved my life. He immediately began searching my purse for my EpiPen, but it wasn't there. Someone, a guest who was a doctor, started CPR while another called an ambulance. The paramedics arrived within minutes, administered a life-saving shot of epinephrine, and rushed me to the hospital. The doctors later told me that if it hadn't been for Henry's quick response, I would have died. At the hospital, blood tests confirmed what everyone already suspected. I had ingested a massive, life-threatening amount of shellfish protein. The doctors also confirmed that the pasta sauce had been deliberately and heavily laced with shrimp paste, far more than would ever be used for simple flavoring. It wasn't an accident. It was a targeted, intentional poisoning. While I was still unconscious, my best friend, Emma, who had been at the party and was now a frantic, terrified vigilante, remembered the security cameras Henry had installed in our kitchen a few months prior. She rushed back to the house and checked the footage from that day. What she found confirmed our worst, most unimaginable fears. The video showed my mother, in the hours before the party, entering the kitchen while the caterers were busy setting up in the backyard. She pulls a small, unlabeled jar from her purse, shrimp paste, and, with a calm, methodical precision, mixes it into a single, separate portion of the pasta sauce. The footage then shows her finding my purse, which was hanging on the back of a kitchen chair, removing my EpiPen, and calmly, deliberately, throwing it into the bottom of the trash can, burying it under a pile of discarded vegetable peelings. The timestamp on the footage showed that this had all happened just 30 minutes before she had so lovingly brought me that plate of pasta. I didn't tell Henry about the video right away. The doctors wanted to keep me under observation, and I needed time to process the sheer, monstrous magnitude of what my own mother had done. The police, alerted by the hospital to a case of suspected intentional poisoning, had already visited, but I had told them I needed more time before making a statement. The worst part, the part that still haunts my nightmares, isn't that my mother had tried to kill me. It was the memory of her standing there, watching me struggle to breathe, her face a mask of calm, detached observation. She hadn't called for help. She hadn't tried to find my EpiPen. She had just watched, waiting, I now realized, for me to die. The day I was discharged, I finally showed Henry the footage. He watched it once, his face going completely, deathly pale. He watched it a second time, and then a third, his hands shaking, a look of pure, unadulterated horror in his eyes. He didn't say a word. He just stood up, his movements stiff and robotic, and he called the police. They arrived within minutes. When Henry, his voice a low, trembling growl, confronted my mother with the video, she tried to lie, to deny it, to twist the story. But the footage was irrefutable. They arrested her right there in our living room. As they were putting her in handcuffs, her carefully constructed mask of the loving, concerned mother finally crumbled, revealing the ugly, twisted face of the monster beneath. She started screaming, her voice a raw, ugly sound of pure, unadulterated hatred. She screamed that it was all my fault, that I had ruined her life, that I had trapped her in a marriage with my father, that I was now trying to ruin her second chance at happiness with Henry. She even, in a final, desperate act of cruelty, screamed that she had wished I had died the day I was born. At the police station, under the relentless, professional questioning of the detectives, she finally broke down and confessed everything. She admitted that she had never loved my father, that she had been planning to leave him for years, that his sudden death had been an inconvenience to her plans. She confessed that she had married Henry for his money, for the security and the lifestyle he could provide. And she confessed that she had tried to kill me because she saw me as the one, final obstacle to her perfect, new life with him and Sonia. The police investigation that followed unearthed a web of deception and criminality that was even more shocking than we could have imagined. They found disturbing text messages on her phone, a long, detailed conversation with her yoga instructor, a man named Mark, with whom she had been having an affair, in which they had been plotting my murder for months. They had discussed various methods, various poisons, before finally settling on my shellfish allergy as the most natural-looking option. The financial investigation revealed that in the months following my father's death, she had systematically and illegally drained his retirement accounts and investment portfolios, forging a signature on documents and transferring nearly $200,000 to a series of secret, offshore accounts. They also discovered that she had been embezzling money from Henry's architecture firm, where she had been working as an office manager. Henry, devastated and betrayed on every possible level, immediately filed for divorce and obtained a temporary restraining order. And then, in a gesture of love and commitment so profound it brought me to tears, he also contacted his lawyer and began the process of legally adopting me, of becoming the father my own father would have wanted for me. Sonia, my sweet, kind stepsister, has been my rock through all of this, her quiet, unwavering support a constant source of comfort. The district attorney is pressing for attempted murder charges against my mother. Her trial is set for next month. She sends me letters from jail, long, rambling, self-pitying manifestos about how my father ruined her life, how I am a constant, painful reminder of all her lost opportunities. I don't read them anymore. I am slowly, painstakingly, beginning to heal. Henry and Sonia are my family now, a real family built not on a foundation of blood and obligation, but on a foundation of love, trust, and unwavering protection. And for the first time in my life, I feel safe. I feel loved. And I feel free.